Welcome to another episode of Down the Line with Charlie and Bo. I'm Sam Wilson, and we're by the stadium, but we're not going to tell you where just yet. Stay tuned for a whole 30 minutes talking baseball. Down the Line is brought to you in part by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board. Visit Montgomery County's main streets. Find out more at makeitmainstreet.com.
They're not just familiar faces. They're your friends and neighbors. It's their small businesses, a beating heart that makes a neighborhood a home, where personality is served on a plate and imagination paints a brighter world. A place where fresh is always in stock with a personal touch passed down through generations. Support small and make a big difference. Make it local. Make it Main Street. Make it Montco.
Today we have some very special and familiar faces. So starting on my left, we have Tom McCarthy, Phillies television play-by-play announcer, aka T-Mac. That's probably what you're going to know him by today. Then we have longtime fan Rich Locklear. We found him and he had some cool stories and he's going to share them with us today. And then to my right, obviously, we have longtime broadcaster, Phillies broadcaster, Greg Murphy. Guys, thank you so much for being here today, and I can't wait to get into these stories.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah. I almost wore the same shirt that Murph has on today. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't.
Charlie and I have done that before. Yeah. I'm going to start this off. T-Mac's been here a while. You've seen how the game has changed, for better or for worse. What is your opinion where the game has come from 2000? Now we're in 2021. I mean, is it a big drastic change for you?
I think that it is a big drastic change in a lot of ways. I mean, when I first started in professional baseball in Trenton in 1994, you know, the starting pitcher would go as long as the starting pitcher could go. Now it's sort of evolving into something a little different. And I think information is a big change. I mean, when I first started in minor league baseball, Murph was still a puppy at the time, but there was no internet.
Right.
I remember the first day we got internet in Trenton, and I tried to explain to my bosses that we were getting a computer, and they were like, what are we going to need a computer for? Because we wrote everything out. So I think information is the biggest thing. I think that is the biggest thing that's changed sports as a whole, how we watch it, how we play it, and how we consume it. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I think that's one of the biggest things.
I mean, I do agree to a certain extent. I do think that sometimes we get away from what our eyes and our heart tell us, and we rely too much on this information.
Yeah, overthink it.
It is the way that sports are now run. I mean,
no doubt.
Charlie, you managed the World Series team, and Murph was there. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you got questions for Murph about that, but it's changed that way for me. I think there's a lot of info, and some of it is overkill, I think.
Right. I think it. When I look at things, all the information that you possibly can give me that I like, I think that's what I'll use that. But that doesn't necessarily mean manage the game for me. I would take that information, and when I became a manager at the major league level, I kind of had my own philosophy. And sometimes people might have a hard time understanding my philosophy, but at the same time, that's why I spent all this time in baseball and in minor leagues and things like that. And I think sometimes, even when the information that we have, and I see things on the field, I'm also a kind of a gut guy, and I think that I can manage without having a whole lot of stuff, you know, like. Throw at my players or having a whole lot of stuff in the dugout with me. Mm-hmm. I would like to manage, you know, a game, you know, like the game the way that I used to manage. And that, from a philosophy standpoint, follow me, because I want you to be with me. from a philosophy standpoint, every team in baseball used to have their own philosophy. They played the game by the talent that they had. And the talent that they had speed, like a White Sox, they had speed, they had pitching and things like that, and not a whole lot of power. They had a big ballpark,
right,
and things like that. They let the grass grow high,
right,
and all this stuff.
Right.
And then here's the Dodgers. The Dodgers had their own way. People said forever that the Dodgers way was the best fundamentally and taught way in baseball for a long time. And then you have the Yankees over here dominating baseball, and they're putting together not only speed, but they're putting together a real good fielding team with power. And back in those days too, they had their rotations were mixed with different kind of pitchers. They had power pitchers, but also they had Whitey Ford but they had Bob Graham and pitchers like this, and they would be what you call, like the major league pitcher, the big pitcher with like a Maddox type pitcher. But Whitey Ford at the same time used to throw like 93, 94, if people don't remember that or nothing, as far as, like doing your baseball history.
Yeah.
And Vic Rash, he would throw 100. That's what I'm getting at, like they had, and also, and when they need a player, they could buy them.
And I think they also, I think what happened too, I don't know if you agree with this, Murph, but they also, whatever their personality was as an organization, those are the players that they would go out and get. I mean, that was the biggest thing. They would go out and get those players that fit their personality.
I think about the St. Louis Cardinal teams of the early 80s.
Yeah, Vince Coleman,
it was
McGee,
it was speed.
Guys.
And those guys, if you were fast, the Cardinals wanted you on their roster because that's the way they played the game. I think, Bo, to your point is that, baseball nowadays, it's a microcosm for life, for everything else. We sometimes make things too complicated, more complicated than they need to be. And I think that's kind of where we are with baseball right now. At the end of the day, pitch, catch, hit, it doesn't have to be as difficult as maybe sometimes we make it.
And to your point, Murph, this is a hard game to play. We all know, even Rich being a great fan, this game is very difficult to play. And when you get inundated with all this information sometimes, we forget what we're out there for. We're out there to win a baseball game. Right. And when I say we, I'm talking about baseball in general. I'm not talking about Phillies, Dodgers, Yankees. Baseball in general in the minor leagues, we are not teaching kids how to win baseball games. We're teaching them launch angle, exit velocity, and spin rate. And there's a big difference between winning a baseball game and having those young kids learn how to launch the ball, exit velocity, and spin rate. And I think that's where we're getting a little bit off the rails. T. I really do, because this is a hard game to play.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know how you feel about this, Rich, as a fan, but also for you, I always liked when you were managing, I used to like, and I don't know if you could sense this as a fan, seeing the game through your eyes and your eyes. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, you could definitely tell when a manager was making a gut move that maybe it didn't make sense to me, but then it paid off, and you're like, wow, he knows what he's doing.
That's why he's there.
Right. That's So I remember I used to, I don't know if I ever told you this, Charlie, but Murph knows this, and it was the same way with you, Bo. I used to be able to know your lineup. You guys used to have a lineup set. Now there were a couple years where you didn't have that, but
for the most part, you're right.
Well, you knew. Mm-hmm. So I used to like the fact that I could think along with you and with you, Charlie, and I'm sure fans feel this way too.
Sure, yeah.
So I would have my whole scorecard done before a game. And it was very rare that I would have to white anything out or anything like that. Now, the thinking part of it is just a little different.
That's so fascinating, just because you don't think of it from the play-by-play announcer's aspect of that, because it is so true. Now it's the analytics. They have this guy's going to match up well against this pitcher, or they're going to get a rest day. And that's interesting to hear from that point of view, because you're right, growing up, it was the same lineup.
It was
I knew Ryan Howard, I knew where they were all going to be.
Charlie and I talk about this because we watch every game, every inning, and when hitters know, and I know every team's not the same, but if you have a real good team, that guy coming in that day, he knows who's hitting behind him, he knows who's hitting in front of him.
Right.
And now, because as you said, Sam, there's workloads we got to watch out for. There's, this guy's pitched 2 days in a row we got to watch out for. So the game has changed that way. Now, is it better? I don't know. It's different. I will say it's different.
Yeah.
And I weighed 155 pounds when I played. and I played on the AstroTurf.
I was 155 in 7th grade.
That's what I weigh now.
You know what? Check the games that I played over 150 games every year.
Yeah.
And when I see guys say, I need a rest, I know it's the new era, but I scratch my head and I'm going, this guy's one of our best players, and he needs a rest. It's hard for me to understand.
And Bo, it's not just baseball.
No,
it's basketball.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know if it's kind of hit football yet because they play so
Different mentality. Different mentality.
You know, they're only playing the 16, 17 games a year, but the rest of the sports have adopted that idea as well. And I don't know if it's better. I don't think it's better. I don't. It doesn't feel better.
It's an interesting concept, and we'll definitely get back to it later. But right now, we have more baseball talk coming your way. Stay tuned.
They're not just familiar faces, they're your friends and neighbors. It's their small businesses, a beating heart that makes a neighborhood a home, where personality is served on a plate and imagination paints a brighter world. A place where fresh is always in stock with a personal touch passed down through generations. Support small and make a big difference. Make it local. Make it Main Street. Make it Montco.
We're back with more baseball talk. So one thing I found interesting that we just spoke on was the launch angle and the analytics and all that. And the thing I noticed about it is it really is gearing the sport in an individualistic stats kind of way instead of a team sport. And that's completely different for you. So Charlie, can you talk about how the stats hitting wise are individualized now?
Well, yeah, really. You know, like there's some things there's two things I don't really understand, and I definitely study sabermetrics and analytics and whatever, the whole package. And in hitting, you know, like to me, when you talk about a launch angle or something like that, that is where the bat hits the ball, and when the ball leaves off the bat, that is your launch angle. If you swing the bat, you have an angle on every swing that you have. So, you know, like that's what I think a launch angle is. I disagree with a lot my philosophy. I love my philosophy because it works, and I know it works.
That's right.
And I'm going to stay with it until I'm 77, until I pass away. And maybe when I
and then I'm going to pass it on to somebody.
And if I go up to heaven, maybe somebody like Lasorda or somebody like that will hire me as a hitting coach. But at the same time, you know, like when I look at things, hitting to me, like I'm a very conventional type hitter. I'm a down to bottom hitter. I love to keep the ball above my hands. If you guys see it every night when you announce it and think talking, when the ball gets above guys' hands, it becomes an uppercut swing and a steep swing. And also they can't handle the ball. They'll get in the habit and they will stay what I call stiff-legged on low pitches, and they can't handle that. So therefore, any ball below my hand is a lift. I want lift. I don't want uppercut. The game is 160 some years old, and there's a lot of scientists to what I talk about hitting, and also about how managing the game. I've been in situations like in hitting, you know, like I want you to hit to your talent. Like, like we have, for instance, Kenny Lofton, when I played in Cleveland, he's a great example of it. Stayed within himself so great, and he used to bunt balls and stuff like that and get on. But no, people don't realize when you look at Kenny Lofton's batting average, his final batting average was over 300, I think. Yeah. And also, too, he was more than just what they call a punch and Judy or a soft hitter.
Yeah, he had some pop.
Yeah, he had, and he moved the baseball, and he used all the talent that he had, every tool. And he knew how to play the game. He knew how to get a lead. He knew how to get a lead with 2 outs and things like that, where he can advance more bases and everything. And even slow runners in the day's game, when they get on base and it's 2 outs, I have a big deal over his T-Mac about, you know, like secondary they don't get leads. Enough secondary leads and can't score. When an outfielder goes to his left or right and field the ball with 2 outs and the guy can't score, there's a reason for that. And the reason for it is he's not thinking about the game and he's not in the game.
We had a game last weekend in New York, Francisco Lindor. It was the same. It was the exact thing. The exact, and he's a good player.
Yeah,
he's a really good player.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing where he, ball to the right side, 2 outs,
By Hoskins.
Right.
and he didn't go right away. He froze, and it's like, where are you? So they didn't score, which was great for the Phillies because Wheeler was able to get out of the inning. But that, and I'm not just saying Francisco Lindor, but that's something that's around baseball.
Yeah. I think what makes baseball so special is if you're playing the game the right way, the way you're describing it, so much is happening before the ball gets put into play, or should be happening in between the ears and looking around and seeing where the players are positioned. Perhaps there's not enough of that nowadays. You know, the thinking before the pitch, the thinking, what am I going to do if you're a fielder? What am I going to do with the ball? What am I going to do as a base runner?
You know what, Murph? You're 100% right. And in my opinion, I think that when you go through all that pregame stuff, and when you're on first base, you look where the outfielders are and everything. But what happens is people don't understand that the game changes from inning to inning, pitch to pitch. What's the score? Who's pitching? Who's coming in? You don't just put information into a computer and say, this is how we're playing today. It changes. That's what makes this game so interesting. You're down 3, you're up 3. There's no question about that. And as you said, if you play it the right way according to the scoreboard, it's an unbelievable game to watch. And to watch all the strategies unfold, it really is a fun game.
All right, so growing up, who was your favorite player, Rich, growing up?
I'd say Brian Howard.
Okay. Murph?
Lazinski.
Okay. Charlie, who was your favorite player when you were a kid growing up? Who did you root
Ted
for?
Williams.
Ted Williams. Okay, Bo?
Mine was Louis Aparicio, little guy for the White Sox.
All right. Sam, did you have a favorite player?
First crush was Chase Utley. Favorite player, Ryan Howard.
Okay. All right. So my favorite player growing up was Thurman Munson. So
played against him.
So you talk about just guys that knew how to play the game, and I think that's the indication that guys just there's guys that know how to play the game now, but there were more, it seemed, knew how to play the game and play it instinctively. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and all the players we mentioned too tied right back into what Charlie said. They played their game and they did their piece
know
of
thyself,
how to
Chuck.
get
Know thyself.
and how to get their team to win. And it's something that is lacking.
I say basically 2 things that completely different is nowadays too. Is the fact that the emotion that's in the game, the styling, the profiling, the grabbing, the laughter, the laughter on the field, and things like this. It takes too much. It airs a lot of time in there, and you lose focus of the game, and you don't concentrate on little things, your lead, and also the situations in the ball game. And you watch nowadays, you see guys that don't know how many outs there are, or throw the ball in the stands even with 2 outs or something like that, and they don't, and they are not in the game. I watch a lot of balls being bobbled in the outfield and stuff like that, and those are just typical mistakes where the fundamental parts come in. And when we talk about, my biggest pet peeve is rest over reps. And you cannot be, and also too, and it confronts, and I don't have time to explain it today, but it confronts with the fact of game situation baseball and being ready to play the game all year long. It starts in spring training. And if you follow what I'm saying is, like anytime we're in a game situation and the guys are playing games, and you've got to be ready, and when the season starts, and I have to have given guys 100 at-bats, and why? Because that's game situation, and that's also conditioning.
Reps over reps.
And a pitcher that in our rotation, he's going to throw 100 pitches at least 3 times, usually 4. He's going to throw 100 pitches. He's going to be strung out, like start at like say 30, and then he goes to 50, and then he goes to 65 or something. But we're going to get him to 100 and things like that, and he's going to be ready when the season starts and healthy. Now the relievers, when we click over to the relievers, if you a 1-inning pitcher for me, you're going to be strung out to 50 to 60 pitches maybe, and therefore you're going to be stronger. When I bring you in the game, I can prove to you from a past of guys like Carsey. He gets a big contract. Why? Because we were going to start him. Tom, just check this out. I totally believe in this. We made a starter out of him. He pitched 4 times at 100 pitches. And the first week of the season, before he ever got a chance to pitch, our closer went down. We put him in the closer's role. He stayed there all year long. He had the best year in his career, and he signed a big deal with the Yankees, and he was stronger at the end.
Chad Durbin was that.
He was stronger at the end than he was at the start.
Well, guys, food just got here, so we're going to go have some lunch. But the main takeaway of that, reps over rest. And we'll have more baseball talk coming up. We're back and we're full. But right now, Rich, I'm going to give you your shot. You were at the Game 5, the second part of Game 5 World Series in 2008. You have to have a question for these guys. So go ahead. This is your floor.
Ask me Jeff Jenkins' question. When did he tell Jeff Jenkins he was pinching?
Yeah,
40 minutes before the game.
That's a good one. But my question is, in today's game, I notice a lot of times they don't want to pitch a reliever more than 1 inning at a time or more than 1 day at a time. And I guess there's some analytics out there that speaks to that, but it also seems to hurt teams often. What's your opinion on that? Did you have a limitation on that yourself? Do you think that's hurting players and teams?
Yeah, I can tell you what when Tom says, ask me why I hit Jeff Jenkins. I might can cover 2 stones, one throw with 2 stones of 1 throw, whatever. Jenkins, to me, like ball 4. He starts every game he starts. He comes out, and this is what I know from watching him and also the information that I gathered from it. He's going to come out and he's going to try to establish his fastball low. And he's a fastball pitcher. Jenkins is a dead fastball hitter. And when I told him he was hitting, like you could see, there was guys on our coaching staff, well, why are you hitting him? We got this guy over here, he can hit a single. We just need somebody to get on, all this. I said, well, let's see how many ways Jenkins can get on. Well, he can walk, he can get a hit, he can get a base hit, he can get a double, no triple, but he can hit a homer. And then he was like that, and I said he's got a good eye, and he was a real good hitter. At one time when he was in Milwaukee, he was the star of the game. And I thought to myself, he is the guy.
That's the gut. That's the gut talk.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right. So I put him up there.
And getting about the relief pitching.
Yeah. Right.
You know what, Rich, that's a good question because I think the way the game has sort of gone from starting pitcher going 5, then you go to the bullpen. If you watch most of the games, it's very difficult for a whole bullpen to get 12 outs. You're asking 4 different guys to go out there and they all have to be on top of their game. That's why it's so important when you get a starter going into the 7th inning, now you break that down to your setup man and your closer. But because we've conditioned these guys, and I'm not blaming the pitchers because we've sort of set the game up now where give me 5 innings, I'll get the 6th inning guy, the 7th inning guy, the 8th inning guy, then I'll bring in my closer. And it makes it very difficult for that bullpen to do that every night. And by the time July comes, they're going to be wore out. It's just a matter of time. You only have so many bullets in your arm. And if you keep doing that, hopefully you have 3 guys that can take you into the 7th inning, and then that'll minimize that a little bit. But right now the game's set up where give me 5. How many times you hear that, Chuck? Give me 5 innings tonight. Bullpen will take over.
That's around baseball.
Right.
Exactly. That's everywhere.
What Bo's talking about too, I agree 100% with that because to me, if we started, if you guys remember, even when we had Fab 4 or whatever we call it,
don't forget Blanton.
Yeah. But anyway, like if you go back and look at the 1 year that we had those guys in the rotation consistently more, that's when I think it's 11 when we had the big season. And 10 we did not have that. And if you go look, they kind of pitched consistent for us in starters role. Right, exactly. So therefore, like our pitching, and Moyer when he had 95 pitches or something like that, I better keep an eye on him. And I was finding a place to take him out of the game. Now, and that should be understandable. But now, if we had a 3-run lead or something like that, and we let him go, at least throw out to the guy in the 6th inning. And if he got him out, he gets another guy and stuff like that. Like until we get in a chance where like I got to go, he makes me come and get him. Yeah. But if he can give you that 5 1/3 to 6 innings, And that's a big
lot
plus
easier.
for your bullpen and things like that.
And Charlie, and you asking those guys to do that, and them knowing that, all right,
Right.
hey, if I get this guy out, I get another guy, and if I can get into the sixth. It was a competitive inside their own head to say, I'm going deep in this game.
Yeah.
You know, whereas a lot of times nowadays it's decided almost ahead of time.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
And that doesn't give them that chance.
And I really think the toughest inning in baseball is the sixth inning.
Yeah.
If you can get that starter past the sixth inning, that's going to shorten your bullpen a little bit. But the sixth inning's a bad inning. If your starter goes 5, you're asking 12 outs. That's hard to do, man. That's
There are not enough good pitchers in baseball to do that.
Well,
for every
I think
team.
there's enough good pitchers, Rich.
Right.
But I think that we have sort of handcuffed them and say, 100. I guarantee most of these pitchers, they'd like to throw more than 100 pitches.
Sure.
But because of the physicality of it now, the trainers are watching out for pitchers. The owners have a lot of money invested in pitchers, so they're saying, don't push him. We need him for 5 more years. So that's why this thing, 100 pitches, bells and whistles goes off, and that's why you got to go to your bullpen so early.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to do a reunion at some point. And you never know where you're going to find us next. We might even pull you on. Rich was here
right,
earlier, said hi, and we brought him right on. So make sure you're on the lookout for us. For Charlie and Bo, I'm Sam Wilson, and we'll catch you down the line.
Down the Line is brought to you in part by the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board. Visit Montgomery County's main streets. Find out more at makeitmainstreet.com.